UN Information Center in collaboration with our organization, International Climate Change Development Initiative. And we are organizing this a monthly dialogue ahead of COP27. And we team it as a Nigerian youth and road to COP27. And we started this series last month, and this month is another conversation. And we are looking at another area in this conversation that we'll be speaking on to, and we are looking at the role of youth in the Nigerian clean energy transition. And that's what we are going to be talking about today. So I want you, if you have friends, family, brothers, young people across Nigeria in all the 6 geopolitical zones, let's try to call them to join us and to listen to this conversation. I am 100% sure we have a good moderator here today. And we also have very fantastic, knowledgeable young people. The 2 speakers we are going to be having today, they're also going to be doing wonderfully well, David and Yetunde. So first of all, before we go straight to the conversation, I want to say a big thank you to United Nations Information Center for giving us this opportunity to also deliberate on some conversation we want to see in reflecting into our outcome or our input to what COP27 is going to look like. And this month, we are looking at the area of, energy transition, and it's going to be a very, straight conversation because our speakers are ready to give us some key, areas that we need to be looking at when it comes to the role of young people, when it comes to the role of clean energy, and how do we also look at our energy transition plan. And it's very, very important. So let me hand over this conversation to Ibrahim. Ibrahim is going to be moderating this from Free From Plastic. He's going to be moderating this session today. I wish us a very great deliberation. I bet you in the next 1 hour we will be done because we don't want it to be too long. We want to just have a good call to action and key outcome from the conversation. Thank you very much, and let us have a good deliberation. Ibrahim, over to you.
Thank you very much, Olumide, for the opportunity, and good morning, all. It's a pleasure to have you all. I can see David Arinze. I like this, your attire. Looks amazing. And Yetunde Deborah Fadei, our facilitators today, and I'll be your moderator for the conversation. It's good to be here, and I'm glad we are going to have a conversation on an issue that we are all battling with in Nigeria, which is epileptic access to energy, but even if it is electricity, clean energy, and energy for cooking and heating purposes, we are all having a bit of challenges. So as the topic of conversation says, we are to discuss on the role of youth on clean energy and Nigeria's energy transition. I will start with Mr. David, and what can you say about the role of youth in Nigeria's clean energy transition?
All right, greetings, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. So delighted for this opportunity to add to this discourse. Special thanks to the organizers for putting this together. And to the question, the role of youth, in energy transition. I think that's a very, very broad question, because we can look at that question from several, it's a multidimensional question. But one of the things that I would like to start from is the fact that youths have a critical role to play when it comes to energy transition. And this can be through policy advocacy, this can be through the implementation of projects, this can be through carrying out being involved in skilling, reskilling, and unskilling, with regards to energy transition, like capacity building. This can also includes providing relevant support when it comes to financing as well. Because when you look at the energy landscape, you understand that it's not just energy is not like the byproduct or the final destination. Energy gives the opportunity for various other sectors to thrive, whether it's agriculture, transportation, whether it's small and medium scale businesses, you name it, whatever sector, whether it's health and education, energy has a critical role to play. And when it comes to the energy transition plan, Nigeria has energy needs that must be met through certain sources, and also while we have on one hand the fact that the energy needs must be met, it must be met through a bankable and a financially viable model, and so it now comes down to, okay, so what is the source we're looking at in terms of providing this energy? What source are we looking at? What type of sources do we currently have prevalent in the country? How bankable is it, and where do we need to go? You see that Nigeria has a lot of oil, for example, and that's why you see that according to today's estimates that have been done, we have over 46 million plus users, of fossil fuel generators. And these people are not just running generators because they want to run generators or because they just want to, for the fun of it, but they have energy needs which must be met, and so they are trying to meet the energy needs through fossil fuel generators. But again, that can only happen because Nigeria is predominant in oil. We have a lot of oil, and that is what we're using currently, and which is also adding significantly to the economic to the financial bank of the country. But now we're saying that we need to transition from that, from the use of permit me to use the word black sources, unclean sources, fossil fuel sources, to more cleaner and more greener sources, like the use of renewable energy, and other sorts of sources as well. So while we will need to transition, and the youths have a lot of role to play, which we can further discuss in more detail in the course of this conversation, while youths have a lot of caps that they can wear as it relates to this value chain, it's just very important to mention at this time that at the end of the day, it's a business. And energy is a business which must be approached as such, and if we're going to be able to solve Nigeria's energy crisis and also transition in an inclusive, and just manner, we need to look at everything from the point where these are the sources that we have. If we need to transition from fossil fuel-based sources to non-fossil fuel-based sources, how can we ensure that this is done over a period of time, bearing in mind that the economic factors also play a very critical role in the decisions that we are taking. So, but in the course of the discussion, we can narrow down in more specificity into the roles that youth can play in helping Nigeria and adding their quota to ensuring that Nigeria arrives at the destination which has been set before us. So, but that would be my take at this point. Over to you, moderator, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David, for the submissions. And from points I picked from your presentation include areas youths can contribute to the Nigeria's energy transition plan, includes policy advocacy, capacity building, and most important, implementing bankable projects that are working towards the energy transition. Thank you very much for the submissions. And back to our second moderator, Ms. Yetunde Deborah Fadeyi, and the floor is yours. You are muted.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. It's good to see my esteemed colleague, David Arinze. I'm supposed to thank UNIC for the opportunity, and Climate Wednesday, the Lumide especially. Thank you very much. The role of youth as regarding clean energy transition. for me, it's a must. It's something that must be achieved, just like David has said. And I think this stems from the fact that it's a personal vision for me to see this coming to realization, because I have lived the life of energy poverty and I do not wish it on anybody. I mean, we are still currently living in that reality. And I do not expect the next generation or down the line 2030, we still battling with it. And as regards climate crisis, it stems from a position of urgency too. I do not want a scenario where we have to face climate catastrophe. Even though we are the last generation that can make the change, we being youths, it just shows that we are just shouldering a whole lot of responsibility, and the onus relies on us to do the best that we can do. And this also means that we have to create, different strategic avenues to make this happen. So in as much as it's personal, it's an urgent situation, is also it's also an avenue for opportunities for youth to make change, to be the change they can be, and also make a difference within their community, even up to the extent of financials, right? There's a lot of strategic ways that youth can make this change. Like David said, capacity building. I'd like to add entrepreneurship. I would also like to mention volunteering, because talking about volunteering, I've seen a number of youths make change without even having to, in different rural communities, without having to, give them money or give them some sort of incentives to make that change. And this clean energy transition is so peculiar, particularly for rural communities, because despite the fact that Thomas Edison lit a bulb, a century ago, these people have never lit a bulb. When it's dark, it is dark. They do not have electricity, and not just because they cannot afford it or because they do not have the capacity to do it, it's just because they have been marginalized. And we have several such communities in Nigeria. That is their reality. But for youths as volunteers to go into these communities, put resources together, either through grants or crowdfunding or whatnot, and go into those communities to help install solar technology so that they can use it for productive use, even if it's as simple as sorting their farm produce into the lines, which they cannot essentially afford to do because they cannot bear the cost of kerosene for fueling their lamps or battery for flashlights. That goes a long way, and it even reduces the cost, the capital expenditure for this kind of project. So in as much as youths have their 9 to 5, they can essentially volunteer, to make such change within these communities that have little to, no support as regarding this. And then to speak to the issue of solar, right? There are several solar technologies, several solar business models, and ultimately it just keys on the fact that without youths making that change or being at the forefront, then the creativity needed or the dexterity needed to deploy scalable solar technologies, either from the aspect of the technology in itself or the business model, then we will not be able to exactly move forward, because what youths can do is add creativity into what they are doing. There are several entrepreneurial minds from Nigeria, like Red Eye, doing amazing things with solar technology and reducing the cost, the price points for different target audiences, so that they are enabled with electricity. And this is so important because when we talk about clean energy transition, it's not exactly just solar. There are other technologies that we need to quickly scale to be able to meet our ambition. So if youths are at the forefront, we can start creating the conversation or the dialogue about how entrepreneurship can spur employment and can, provide 42 million jobs by 2050 for Nigerians. Because one of the challenges in Nigeria is the increasing unemployment rate. So we can solve a myriad of problems by just allowing youths take the forefront when it comes to electricity, clean energy transition, based on what my colleague said, David, capacity building, based on entrepreneurship, based on volunteering, and most importantly, women, including women. I'm not just saying this because I'm a woman. I'm saying this because I have seen how women can spur development, right? Positioning women in or encouraging gender equality in a sector as this would deliver what the bottom line, basically. So over to you, Brian. If there are any questions or if there is more reason to add to what I've said, we will definitely do that.
For the wonderful submission. And if I have gotten your points, one of the key things we have to identify about the role of youth in Nigeria's clean energy transition is, one, young people are majority of our population, and definitely they have to play a key central role. And going to the fact that you mentioned issues around energy poverty and in grassroots and marginalized communities. Recently, I read a report by the International Renewable Energy Agency that renewables were the world's cheapest source of energy in the year 2020. But it's quite unfortunate. I don't know, why are renewable energy still unpopular, and how do we address that?
All right. Thank you so much for that question. I don't know if it's fine. I can go ahead to provide some response to it. So if I understand the question clearly, IRENA, yes, the International Renewable Energy Agency has stated that yes, renewable energy is one of the cheapest fuels. But why is it unpopular in the country, right? That's the question. I would like to say that there are many reasons for this. Renewable energy is still a very green technology in this part of the world, and don't forget that renewable energy is a technology. And what happens for you to have for technology to be utilized? It means that the technology has to be readily available, has to be prevalent, has to be affordable. For example, you see that if you go to even your typical banking institutions, right? A lot of them are happy to give you some sort of facility, to go buy a house and pay over a period of time, or go buy a car and pay over a period of time, and all those sort of things. But when it comes to energy, because there is a high capex, and when it comes to renewable energy, there's a high capex of purchase. Yes, in the long term, those numbers are being done over like a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year estimation. And yes, when you look at it in that lens, it is cheaper than other sources, because, for example, if I want to narrow down into the various components, that in a typical solar solution, you have the solar panels, you have the batteries, you have the charge controllers, the inverters, and what have you. A typical solar panel can last you up to 20-25 years. It has a warranty of up to 20-25 years. And there you're sure that, okay, if you install set up a solar panel, as far as it is not being ruptured or it's not being broken or it's not being affected in any way, for 20, 25 years, you can go to sleep on its performance. For batteries, for example, the most of the initial installations we had were done through lead acid batteries, but now there's the introduction of lithium batteries. You know, lead acid batteries could last between 2 to 3 years, and you now have lithium batteries that can last you up to 10 years without having to replace this equipment. You know, and so you have the inverters, which are equipment that can last for a significant period of time. And so you have this on one hand, and so those projections are made on that scale, you know. But again, when you look at a typical, say, a 2 kVA inverter solution, which may be priced at an average, say, an average of 2.5 kVA, which is probably like about ₦1 million, you know, depending on the quality of equipment that you're deploying. On the other hand, if you want to buy a generator of that capacity, you're not going to be spending more than 200,000 naira. Now, although with the exchange rates, that number may be significantly higher, you know. And yes, we do not manufacture generators here in Nigeria, but because of Nigeria has been an oil-dependent nation over the years. So this technology is not just coming to Nigeria when it comes to generators. Generators have been here for a long time, and it has one thing that technology does is technology provides the appetite to have people work across the value chain. So you have generator repairers, which is skill that they had to learn. You have the generator salespeople. You have people that are also selling petrol with regards to the generator. So if you look at that value chain, it's huge as compared to clean energy. So you look at the cost variation. It's easier for somebody to say, okay, you know what, I can afford a 200,000 naira generator, or there are even generators that cost less, you know, that also have like a similar capacity. And you wouldn't find most people saying, oh, because I'm trying to save the planet, I would really, if I don't go the solar way, I will not provide electricity for myself. That's not being realistic. It's just like someone that says, oh, because cars emit carbon into the have some emissions into the atmosphere, rather than using a car that will take you there faster, you decide to use your legs, you know, that wouldn't emit any. And of course, as you're a human, you're not emitting anything. About whatever you're emitting, it's good for the trees around you. So when you look at that, you now begin to compare, look at one of the challenges that we have, you know, in terms of offtake, you know, and when it comes to popularity about this is the economic factor. And most people who are entrants who are playing in the solar space, not a lot of them have the either pay as you go model, or have the opportunity for you where you can pay, spread your payments over a period of time, because again, like I mentioned, it has a high capex. You know, so when you want to compare it to like a typical fossil fuels generator, it is the typical generators have a lower cost, but a long-term negative impact on the environment, from the carbon that's been emitted from the generators to the fact that you have to do a lot of maintenance. Like for those who have generators, you agree that you do your maintenance very regularly, almost every month. You know, they're buying petrol and all the stuff. So when you aggregate that cost of, say, you're running a 2.5 kVA generator as against a 2.5 solar solution, you see that in the long term, you know, that you are spending less if you go the solar way or the renewable energy way as against the generator way. So that's where the conversation comes, you know. But when it comes to also the fact that why it's not so popular, people need to be able to afford a particular technology, you know, and if there are no incentives to ensure that people can come on a technology or take advantage of a technology, it poses a very significant challenge, you know. And so that's why right now we're seeing some initiatives that have been done by the federal government through the Rural Education Agency to ensure that those who need electricity, especially in the rural communities, have access to them through solar developers who are deploying mini grid solutions and other sorts of solutions in these communities. However, it's going to take us some time, to ensure that solar is in the or renewable energy is in the mouth or in the house of every Nigerian. Because a lot of people also, one of the things that affected that have affected the renewable energy industry, especially when solar was initially introduced in the country, there was not a lot of people who knew, understood the technology, and who knew the craft, of effectively deploying this technology. And some people that even said, oh, this is solar, this is green, and that could even afford the solution at the time, got their fingers burnt, because after installing a solution that should last you for years before you have to even do any sort of replacement or maintenance, we're not even lasting months, and so that's also, imagine spending millions of naira on a massive solution. At the end of the day, it stops working because it was poorly done, and so now the government is now beginning to see how we can better regulate, the space, by ensuring that those who are even carrying out installation, for example, are people that are certified, and so the Council for the Regulation of Engineering launched, through the support of the EU and GIZ, launched the Nigeria Clean Energy Scheme. Basically the scheme is focused on just focused on sanitizing the renewable energy space, so that those who are really providing that service in terms of either installers, technicians, craftsmen are properly certified, have gone through the relevant trainings, have gotten the relevant certifications in order to be deployed this. Because recall at the beginning of my conversation, I mentioned that there's a lot of capacity building that needs to happen, for us to be able to be at the point where we want to be, So having said that, that's why it is cheap, or it is classified as cheaper than other sources, and also these are some of the issues that may have impacted on it's not being on the lips of everyone. And of course, it's going to take a lot of time. There's still a lot of incentives that needs to come in. For example, today, I would say that there's still, if you look at the tax, that is put in on the importation of this equipment, it's still significant. If I'm not mistaken, I think up to 10%, of the cost of the equipments that are coming in. And of course, all this impact on the end user price of these components, because at the end of the day, if the businessman who is importing panels or batteries or inverters into the country has to make profit, but he cannot be experiencing significant taxes, at the customs duty side, at the various shipping agents and the rest of them. And finally, he is able to bring in his goods into the country, he or she must make profits, and that's it on one hand. On another hand as well, it's also important to mention that while this equipment are currently being manufactured into the country, we need to start looking at how we can begin to produce them as well. So for example, we have a company, just only one company that is privately owned, that assembles panels in Lagos. When it comes to inverters, we have only one as of today that assembles and that manufactures in Enugu. When it comes to batteries, you also see that there is something that is oncoming, and a lot of investment needs to go into R&D, into ensuring that these equipments are not just imported into the country, but they are locally made. Because when you look at the value chain now, the number of jobs that will be created through the manufacturing of, for example, panels, batteries, charge controllers, inverters, is huge. And that's why you see that back in the day, you hear things like, oh, we had, if you're working in an oil company, oh, you're almost a semi-god. Why? Because Nigeria's was making a lot of money through oil-based technologies, and hence a lot of people had to be skilled in it. A lot of people in terms of rig engineers and the rest of them, and all those things are very important, are very important to that value chain. But now we have a clean energy sector where you need to build a whole new set of skills for and workforce for, and this is not existent, and so it's going to take a lot of time. Even as at today, I don't think there's any university in the country that has like renewable energy BSc or renewable energy engineering, as a BEng course or as a Bachelor of Science course, and so these are the conversations. Because if you go on the other hand, you look at this petrochemical engineering, there's chemical engineering, and you name it, there's even oil and gas engineering, so this is persons that are being trained for an oil and gas sector. But you come on the side of renewable energy, the best you can get is either renewable energy and physics, or electrical electronics engineering with a touch of power, or power engineering, so we need to also look at the fact that we need to build a workforce, for this week. So these are some of the issues, that could that could be affecting the popularity, of the space, and in ensuring that it gets into the lips of many more Nigerians. So, but we hope that in the very near future, as government continues to take significant steps, we begin to hear more phrases than "I better pass my neighbor" to maybe "I solar pass my neighbor," something like that. But until we get to that point and that kind of granular message, we would not necessarily really achieve the kind of goals that we hope to achieve. So that's my take on this for now. Mr. Moderator, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David, for this wonderful submission. And I think I've picked some points from your response to the question that one of the issues why these renewable energy sources are unpopular is one, taxes associated to importation, accessibility, technology transfer, and of course, the economic situation of the citizens. Thank you very much for the submission. And before I come back to you, David, let me go to Fadeyi. I just want to ask you that what is the potential of clean energy in solving Nigeria's energy crisis, especially that recently we have been having frequent collapse of the national grid? What is the potential?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Potential is really huge, particularly because SDG 7 being clean energy at the heart of the SDGs. And the SDGs are typically supposed to be like metrics to fulfilling sustainable development. Sustainable development in the sense of ending poverty, ensuring typically a better life for people, ensuring a better environment, and also shared prosperity. The potential is really huge because capitalizing on the fact that our electricity access is pretty much decentralized. Like David said, we have over 60 million generators in circulation. That means for every time a family or a household or a business puts on a generator, we emit carbon, right? And for the fact that there is fuel scarcity, there is inflation, the subsidy is about to remove, it presents an avenue for the government and different stakeholders to, leverage on this inefficiencies and challenges to make change. We already have a decentralized system, so it's easy for us to establish different renewable energy technologies, which are typically decentralized. For example, solar, right? For example, wind, biomass. So speaking to this potential, we can even leverage the fact that there are policies already on ground to enable the delivery of these technologies. For implementation is the problem. Now, might I bring it to our attention that the government has essentially banned small petrol generators since 2015, but the sales of small petrol generators are still quadrupled as against solar technologies in Nigeria. So that's to show you that there is an opportunity to scale. We just need the right incentives. We need the right policy initiatives to enable this. There's a project I'm working on with Irina concerning education. I want to believe that the reason why people do not understand the potential that stands within clean energy is because they are very ignorant. But if people understand what is obtainable and how they can make change, it will be easy to make that transition happen. So this education it doesn't exactly start and end with the youth. It also starts with the children who essentially will become youth in a couple of years to come. So we having to, do this would enable the kind of transition that we need and we desire within the Nigerian and the Nigerian energy space. I would want to also add this, right? The youth, we need to do something extraordinary when it comes to demanding for the right kind of initiatives. We are consumers, not just us, obviously, but like Ibrahim said, we form the major. We have a large percentage of the population, so that means that we can essentially, drive that change. As an entrepreneur working in Nigeria or a remote worker, you can decide the kind of energy you want to use or the kind of electricity you want to use. It doesn't necessarily have, in fact, it should not be petrol generators, because aside from the environmental effects, it even dampens your efficiency. Earlier this year, I received complaints from my friends who are remote workers who had to queue for fuel to meet up with their deadlines. And typically their employers are not even in the country, they are out of the country. So they do not even understand when you say that there is no electricity, that you are queuing. It's not a word that they are familiar with, a reality that they are familiar with. So it is high time you'd start to, look for strategic and creative means to satisfy their energy needs. If everyone can decide not to buy petrol generators, the decision is with the consumer, not with the government. If everyone can decide that, then we would make progress. Because in as much as Nigeria is the consumer-led economy, we still have the right to make certain changes. It's just that we are oblivious to it. So take, for example, with the analysis that David said about CapEx and OpEx of the cost benefit analysis of petrol generators and solar solution. Fine, the CapEx is high, right? But there are several initiatives out there with Sterling Bank, with Carbon Finance, that are essentially reducing the purchase cost of solar technologies. So at this point in time, it is the customer, it's the consumer that makes that decision, not the government. So this is the perspective I want us to start exploring, not just waiting for the government to make policies or to implement policies. Because the thing is, the policies are there, is implementation that is just the problem. And who helps to implement these policies, if not for the most important stakeholder on the board, the people, right? So the potential is huge, but we need consolidated effort from everybody, but most importantly, from the people, the end user, you and I, literally, that wake up every morning to use electricity, either to power our phones, to do business or whatnot. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Yetunde, for the submission, and I was able to pick some points from your response to the question, and it implies that there are a lot of opportunities for the youths. We just have to get a clear understanding of the whole clean energy system, which is associated with our inability to access the reliable information we need And we will have to be engaged as active citizens in order to promote policy implementation that will drive energy transition. And you just give me a hint on the next question to ask Mr. David Arinze. And I'm sure you are familiar with the Energy Transition Plan, and I'm sure you are part of the Sustainable Energy for All Forum in Kigali. So in just a minute, because we are running out of time, what is your perception on the Energy Transition Plan, Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan, and what are your fears and prospects? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for the question, Ibrahim. Yes, when it comes to Nigeria's energy transition plan, you know, it's one document that we have all been looking out for. While this was, you know, launched at COP26, you know, where also Mr. President also committed to Nigeria achieving net zero by 2060. You know, we also, it's exciting to see what we have on paper, you know, but the challenges are glaring. And what are those challenges? One of them are we need to electrify over 100 million Nigerians who are living in energy poverty, you know, and also drive economic growth for these people. You know, we also need to ensure that we bring in modern energy services, you know, to Nigerians as a whole. You know, also we need to look at the fact that we have, how do we manage the long-term job loss, you know, in the oil and gas sector, you know, and how does it resonate? How can we ensure that we can reskill, you know, for the clean energy sector? And these are the challenges that we have, you know, and these are challenges that are presented in that energy transition plan. And when you look at those plans, you not know that, okay, when it comes to meeting our energy needs, it's beyond not just electricity or providing electrons to people to power their businesses. You also have to talk about clean cooking as well, you know, and we still have a lot of people who rely on coal, rely on firewood to meet their domestic cooking needs as well. In fact, we have over 2.5 billion people across the, you know, across the globe who we need to give access to energy, more modern cooking sources, you know. And so when you look at that and you trickle it down back to Nigeria, you know that the gap is very huge, you know. And while we may be committing to achieving net zero by 2060, you know, based on the Nigerian the energy transition plan, we need to know that we can only achieve this through a bankable model. Nigeria will not be playing in the oil and gas space today if it wasn't bankable. There was demand and Nigeria was meeting that demand, and what we were getting FX, we're getting monies from that whole value chain. And we need to be able to ensure that while we are committing to energy transition, you know, and energy transition is cutting across various sectors: building, transportation, electricity, education, you know, healthcare, you name it. We'll need to transition across all of this, you know, and for us to be able to transition from what we currently have to what can be, there has to be a lot of actors playing their parts. Government providing necessary tax holidays to ensure that we can have a rush, you know, of some of these technologies that we need to be popular in the country, to be much more popular than they are. We also need to ensure that beyond just importing and getting monies out of the shores of the country, we need to build local capacity, you know, so that we can begin to make some of these things homegrown. And those who are already playing in the space, like Yetunde Olive mentioned, as entrepreneurs, also need to be given the necessary support. You know, for example, I mentioned the company that is in Lagos assembling panels, and the company in Enugu manufacturing inverters. How can the government ensure that we can have not just one company playing in this space, but we can have several hundreds of companies? What do we need to do? Do we need to have more incubator programs where there is relevant hands holding and access to financing. You know, these are things that needs to happen if we're going to really see Nigeria achieve the energy transition plan. When it comes to clean cooking, you know, people would usually just go into the bushes and cut trees and meet their heating needs because it's cheaper for them to do that than for them to either use other clean cooking and modern cooking services. But at the end of the day, you look at that, they're cutting trees and it's having an adverse effect, you know, on our environment. You know, the carbon that also being emitted is having significant effects on us. If we continue to use generators, the sound, you know, the carbon that's emitted, the sound that also comes from the generators as well, all these have a very negative impact on us, you know. And so there has to be a holistic work across the various sectors. There has to be the intentionality of purpose. If we are sure that these challenges that have been enumerated, we want to solve them, and we don't just want to just say to the world something interesting, but on the other hand, we are not taking significant steps to address this through bankable models with situations where the government can provide relevant financial capital, you know, for financial aid, you know, to be able to solve this. Also, we look at when we talk about electricity, we also look at our national grid. You know, you look at the fact that as it stands today, based on the information with the 11 distribution companies we have in the country as at today, we have over about 11 million confirmed customers, and out of that 11 million, I think about 5 to 7 million of those are metered, you know, based on the database of the distribution companies. Yet you have a country who has over 200 million people, you know, and we can also significantly reduce the need for people to be independent power producers through their generators if we can get our grid to be working. But for us to get our grid to be working, and then if we're saying we want to maintain the national grid structure, we also need to look at the fact that, yes, we can leverage the national grid to significantly reduce emissions, you know, by leveraging our hydro dams, which are also renewable energy focused technologies, by leveraging other sorts of generation of electricity through natural gas, you know, which of course are cleaner than all other sources of energy that we currently rely on today. But all this can only happen where there is a significant participation of the government in playing the part they need to play. Because we cannot, for example, just look at the numbers. You have 11 million versus 46 million set known generator users, you know, and I feel that number is significantly higher than what we have stated at the moment, you know, as against what you have with the DisCo. So we really, if we're sure that we want to solve this, address Nigeria's energy poverty and really solve it in the way that it needs to be solved, then the level of intentionality needs to go into this. First of all, for those who are playing on the on-grid space, need to also be given the relevant incentives, you know, to be able to better play. Because imagine that those 46 million plus of Nigerians who are currently firing their generators don't need to fire the generator any other day, because of the government can leverage its robust infrastructure to provide electricity through cleaner sources. That will significantly ensure that we are on the path, you know, to achieving Nigeria's energy transition. Imagine that our trains are not just powered by other fossil fuel sources, but powered by electricity, because we have a formidable electricity infrastructure, you know, or thriving electricity market, you know, within the country. You know, so these are some of the issues, because electricity in itself is not the end product. It gives life to, you name it, other sectors, be it transportation, be it building, you name it, is very significant. Even when it comes to Nigeria achieving the energy transition plan, look at the number of cars we have on our roads every day that need to buy petrol products. We need to change that, because imagine we also have, imagine that imagine the millions, of petrol stations we have, or thousands, I beg your pardon, of the petrol stations we have across the country today. If we're going to transition from, for example, fossil fuel based technologies to more electricity, more cleaner based sources, to provide electricity, and say we want more electric cars or electric buses or electric trucks, you name it. These trucks need to be, for them to be charged, they need charging stations. Where are these charging stations at the moment? How do we even intend to roll out these charging stations? If we want to use a different technology, what is the plan? What infrastructures are we setting in place? Where are we beginning to pilot how these projects would work, and begin to look at how we can intentionally scale across board? So these are some of the issues that, if we do not really resolve, it will just be a nice, bold declaration that has been made, on paper, but it doesn't move the needle. We need to be able to see that the whatever comments that have been made, whatever commitments that have been made, though bold and ambitious, but needs to also be realistic and backed by the relevant actions of key stakeholders within the space. So that's my response to the with regards to Nigeria's electricity energy transition plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. David, for the wonderful submission. I think if I get you clearly and pick the points right, one of the key issues to try to address, if we are actually intentional to transit, is we have to build the capacity of people even at the local level, and there is need for collaboration between the government, public, private sector, and civil society that are working around clean energy to work together towards the transition. And also we should ensure that we have significant investments in our clean energy sources. Just like we mentioned, the national grid, we have the hydropower. There should be a lot of investment and capacity building to ensure that even if we invest, we have reliable individuals to maintain and ensure that this grid is far away from collapse. And yeah, of course, there is need to ensure that people understand why we have to transit. And just like you mentioned, these are petroleum stations. If they will convert such stations to charging stations, it will be an amazing progress towards the energy transition, but they cannot do it alone. The government cannot do it alone. It means all hands has to be on deck. Thank you very much for the submission. And Yetunde, do you have anything to add to the question before we move to the audience for their own questions?
Yeah, David has done an extensive submission to the question. I would like to speak from the social and environmental aspect of what has been said. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's an urgent need for a country like Nigeria, even though we contribute the least or one of the least emissions, but our climate vulnerability index is super high. So speaking from an environmental perspective and a social perspective, it is highly essential that we make this transition happen as soon as possible. And like David said, it's not just electricity, because electricity is not just energy. It has to do with the industrial sector. It has to do with the air conditioning. It has to do with so many other sectors. And I'm very realistic. I'm a very realistic person. I know that renewable energy alone will not help us get there, right? But sustainable energy will. There's a difference. There's a difference between renewable and sustainable, and sustainable energy is hinged on a sufficient energy mix. So that means that by 2030, we do not exactly expect that all of our energy would come from renewable energy sources, hydro or solar. It would come from a mix. It can be natural gas, say 60% of natural gas, 40% of renewables. It can be a mix that, ensures that there is, a social representation and an environmental representation without ignoring the financial repercussions of this. Right? And then to speak to the environmental perspective, we've ratified the Paris Agreement. We have indices to meet, and this is where data comes in, right? I'm of the opinion that this data that we need to actively track our indices is not, is not holistic enough. There are several people that, across Nigeria that have installed household solar installation that has not been captured in the indices. We are just talking about the mini grids that have been installed in Kaduna today, the one, so all that kind of data needs to be captured. The data has to be holistic for us to be able to adequately measure from where we are now, which is typically a baseline scenario, to where we want to be in by 2030. So again, to speak to entrepreneurship, the government might not be able to do it, but I want to say that this might be a super great opportunity for an entrepreneur to come up with the analytics or the creativity to invent something that can help us, track our emissions on a household level, and on just on the general level, so to speak. And I would like to speak about the carbon credits and carbon tax. In as much as it seems like this sector is pretty much new to Nigeria, it also presents an opportunity for us to be able to further reduce purchase costs for renewable energy technologies and also monetization and climate impact, right? So I was reading a report earlier last month, I think, and it was hinging on the fact that carbon tax is bound to increase. I think about 4 times or so. Currently, it's about $50 per ton. For 1 ton of carbon sales is about $50. It's about to, increase 3 to 5 times. So that presents an opportunity for people or for individuals or companies or entities generally that are interested in going clean or going green rather. They can be incentivized to, trade the carbon they would essentially emit to further reduce their operational cost, or, on an household level, reduce the cost to even acquire a renewable energy technology long run. So these are the opportunities that, clean energy presents. It's not just about, the environment, but it also presents an opportunity for growth. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm working on a project with IRENA, and I've been exposed to so much data and as well as so much opportunities that this and the transition can offer. So I want to believe that it's not just a function of having to, I know change is difficult, right? All right, but if we could just, make this transition more human-centered, other than just technology, it would help us hasten the transition. So when you go into a community or when you want to implement a technology within the renewable energy space, you have to think of like the public perception of it, right? How people would accept the technology, how people would use the technology, and excite people from the perspective of having to dictate how the technology will be used, not imposing how the technology should be used, because these are the challenges on a global level that technologies as this face. Oil and gas is established, particularly for fossil fuel like coal and crude oil is established, but that did not just happen. It happened over a long period of time. So people should also give renewable energy the opportunity to be able to do that. and open their mind to technologies such as nuclear. Nuclear is not, is not exactly a bad technology. Nuclear energy can be used for industrial use, and it is renewable. So this is also to go back to the aspect of education. We need people to, be educated as regarding renewable energy and the transition itself, so that we can all, commit and make that change, not just from like the government or the policy aspect, but also from the consumer aspect as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah, for this wonderful addition. And yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned issues around carbon credit and carbon taxes that we can always leverage on in order to promote the energy transition plan. And of course, that means we have to also invest into research and development, just like Mr. David Arinze mentioned earlier, because it's only when we have reliable data and statistics that we'll be able to have access to the carbon credit and carbon taxes. And thank you very much. And we have some questions from the audience. I can see Mr. Bashman Mohammed raising his hand. Mr. Bashman, can you go ahead with your question?
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. And I think all the panelists have spoken very, very well, but I think I'm most interested with what the last speaker said as Yetunde. I'm from the trade union background. I think in taking climate change, emphasis should be placed more on just transition. She emphasized the need for the human-centric aspect of it. Yes, the truth is that we are the least emitter. So if we must transit, we should do that with human face. We will not begin to close down factory and workers will be out of job, all because we want to pay for the sins of others. We in Labour believe that there's no work in a dead planet. The planet should be protected. But in protecting the planet, we should be worker-centric. The transition should be just and fair to the workers. So that's one. I'm happy Yetunde emphasized this particular point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the submission. Any other question from the audience before we get our concluding thoughts from our great facilitators? And I'm sure we've learned significantly a lot about clean energy today, especially in Nigeria, and the role young people can play in order to promote Nigeria's energy transition. And yes, of course, we are clearly informed today that there are a lot of opportunities in clean energy. We just have to get the right information and invest our time and resources in order to tap from such opportunities. So, any question from the audience? I can't see anyone raising his or her hand. Yeah, I don't think I'm checking through the chats whether there are questions, and it's like there are no questions from the audience. In the absence of that, that means they are well fed by Mr. David and Yetunde. Thank you very much for your time, and I would like to get your concluding thoughts. Maybe this time around, we'll start with Yetunde. Yetunde, can you give us your concluding thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much, Ibrahim. So this is basically a call to action. I know everyone here, I would like to ask for this favor, in quote. I don't know the kind of electricity, how you harness your electricity, but I want to believe that at least some of it comes from the grid, right? But ultimately, if you own a petrol generator, you can reach out to me and I will essentially refer a better alternative, which is renewable to you. I will drop my email address in the chat and my number, so you can reach out to me, because I want this change to start with us. I don't want the situation where we just talk about it and we're not essentially making any valid changes to it. So that would be my own call to action. Over to David.
Thank you for this call to action. And I don't know, maybe I might be the first person to reach out, because recently I've been battling with epileptic power supply. And when I have meetings, I'll be thinking, do I go for generator, or I will just have to charge my gadgets? So that means I might be the first person to reach out. And let's hear, maybe Mr. David's offer will be cheaper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Thank you to everyone who has stayed up to this time and those who joined in the course of the conversation. Indeed, it has been an exciting one for me. And what I would say is this: youth have a critical role to play. You can choose to add your own quota to the sector by leveraging the various platforms that you have to advocate, to talk about clean energy, the role that clean energy has to play, and point the general public towards the benefits of clean energy over fossil fuel-based sources. Or you can choose to also play like Yetunde, what Yetunde is doing as an entrepreneur in energy, as a woman in energy, where she, through her company Vector, if I'm not mistaken, is providing turnkey solutions, innovative solutions to meet energy poverty, across Nigeria and across the world, and so you can also choose to play, as someone who is in finance, as someone who is in education, as someone who is in health, we all have our roles to play and can also continue to lend our voices towards solving this challenge. Having said that, there are a number of opportunities, for early entrants who are in the space. So you may be on the call and you're wondering, oh, I have an innovative solution. But I think I need some access to financing to be able to better run a pilot, and so the opportunities there within the sector there. One of them is the Olon Incubator Program, where the Olon is a renewable energy seeded by Shell, and Olon has through their Olon Hub, we're providing some significant support, to early stage renewable energy companies. Also, there's a program that the United States African Development Foundation in partnership with Olon, have been running for the past 5 years, which have given birth to some of the most successful renewable energy companies within this landscape in Nigeria. You can just search for the USADF Off-Grid Energy Challenge, and that will provide some more insight. So through that platform, again, blended financing to the tune of $100,000 have been given to companies who emerge as successful, and we at Diamond Development Initiatives have worked with all these companies as USADF implementing partners in Nigeria has worked with these companies to deploy their projects and even access full-on financing, and some of the companies that we initially supported to implement their pilot projects have grown ahead to secure millions of dollars in full-on financing to scale their concept that has already been proven, and so just in case you're an entrepreneur in the room, or for those who will listen to this recorded session afterwards, these opportunities currently exist. We will continue to add our quota towards galvanizing more opportunities for young people, for youth who are interested in driving energy transition. Also, I'd like to mention that I am the global one of the global focal points for the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, under the major group for children and youth, and we through our initiative through the constituency, try to share relevant opportunities, for youth who are interested in playing in clean energy. That we work across advocacy, implementing projects, and provide opportunities to really support youth, not just in Nigeria, but now across the globe. So if you're looking at how you can reach out to me at any time, should you need any sort of guidance onto how you can add your quota or to any form of clarification, we're very responsive on social media. My handle on Twitter is David_EnergyNG, and on Instagram is David Arinze_. Kindly feel free to reach out to us, send a DM. We're in a world where a lot of barriers have been taken care of through technology, and so let us keep the conversation going. Let us continue to add our quota. Let us continue to ask the right questions and also hold government accountable. Why we are passionate, we as youth are passionate and excited about adding our quota towards Nigeria's energy transition. We also need to ensure that government who sits at the middle of this need to be held accountable to ensure that they provide an enabling environment for various players within the value chain to thrive. And so in closing, I would say that youth, the future is really in our hands. We can choose to fold our hands and do nothing, or we can choose today to begin to lend our voices towards this very meaningful cause, which our generation would not just benefit from, but generations coming after us would simply be glad if we be glad about the work that we did, if we decide to begin to take significant actions today. To the organizers, to the team, thank you for putting this together. We're always very delighted to add our quota towards conversations around energy transition, renewable energy, capacity building for youth as it relates to green jobs. I'm going to ensure that Nigeria would achieve its set plan if we all can come together and continue to mobilize good action. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David, and thank you all for participating. And don't forget to tweet on your experiences and points taken, what we learned on the session on Twitter, and as well tag the International Climate Change Development Initiative at ClimateWed, and also the UN in Nigeria, which is at UN_Nigeria on Twitter, and I'm sure you can as well tag Mr. David Arinze and Yetunde Falei, and you can as well ask questions on such a platform, and I'm sure they will be ready to respond and guide us towards our interest in the clean energy transition. And before we call it a day, I think I couldn't find Olumide. Maybe network kicked him out, and we should hear a closing remark from the representative of UN in Nigeria, the UN Information Center, Lagos.
Just before we get into the closing remarks, Mr. Ibrahim, I saw that on the chat, Cleantech Hub also mentioned that they run an incubation program, which of course they have also been playing in the renewable energy space, and they have launched the applications for the third cohort. So you can contact on the chat. They've put in an email address you can contact. And please, for Ifechi from Cleantech Hub, if you have a link to that opportunity, more like a link to your website, that people can read some more about, just to know about it, because Cleantech Hub is one of also those platforms that have been working to support youth in clean energy as well. So it'll be great if some additional information can be provided, Ifechi, so that people who are on the call and those who would join or listen to the recording can also benefit from that information. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, sir. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Mr. David, for calling my attention. Actually, I saw a chat, but I was not able to go through it, and it's a very important call. So Ifechi, please, if there is a link you can share with us, or maybe you tell us how to get access to the link so that we share with others, or maybe who contact the Clean Technology Hub. I don't know. For me, I know I have contact with some of your staffs, so maybe I'll try and see if we can get the link, and then Climate Wednesday I will as well share the link on their social media platforms for the participants to have access and yeah, apply, and we start the journey towards energy transition. Thank you, Mr. David. It's amazing to have you here today. Thank you, Yetunde, for being here. It's amazing. I've learned a lot. I have a lot of interest in renewable energy, but it's like today you've inspired me to do more. Thank you very much. And over to the representative of the UN Center. Or Ifechi, do you have anything to say? Oh, it's like, Ifechi, are you there? Oh, she just dropped the link. I don't know why she don't want to talk. Okay, to the rep of the UN Information Center, so please go ahead.
Thank you very much, everyone, being here on behalf of the director, Mr. Ronald Kayanja. We say thank you to everyone that has participated. Thank you so very much, David Arinze, for being one of our speakers, and of course, Ms. Deborah Day for being here as well. Thank you for all of your insightful contribution. I'm sure some of us are gaining new insights into renewable energy. That was very good. And to all of our participants, thank you for finding time to join us. This is a monthly series event, and we're looking forward to another very wonderful topic in the coming month. And I hope you'll be able to join us all. Thank you for being here. We're grateful. God bless.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You wonder I've not even called you. Thank you so very much for moderating this session. And I hope we can always follow you at any time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And Olumide wants to come and give us few words before we call it a day. He's trying to join. So let's give him just some seconds to join and give us his final remarks, and then we end the meeting. Thank you very much all for your patience, and thank you for joining us in this journey towards promoting energy transition in Nigeria.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mama Shamsuddin.
Hello?
Welcome, Olumide.
Yeah, sorry, I was on the, thank you so much. I hope we are done, right? Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I also want to say a big thank you to everybody that joined us on behalf of ICCDR. Special thanks to UN Information Center for giving us this privilege. So thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Yetunde. Thank you, David. I hope to connect again next month for another edition of this Nigerian Road to COP27. Thank you.
Thank you very much all for joining, and do have a blessed day ahead.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you to all the guests. That was a very wonderful session. I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Indino Bong, and